"You're just a burden." My sister laughed after I paid their rent, utilities, and trips for years. I snapped, told her she was never family, just a parasite. I canceled everything and cut them off for good. Now I'm left questioning if I did the right thing. 29M, never thought I'd be writing this, but I need to get this off my chest. 3 months ago, I made a decision that changed everything, and I'm still wondering if I'm the villain in my own story. For the past 5 years, I've been the family ATM. It started innocently enough when my sister moved back home after college with no job prospects. Mom and Dad were struggling to make ends meet, and I had just landed a decent software engineering position. Helping out felt natural, even noble. What began as covering a few grocery bills snowballed into something I never saw coming. Soon I was paying their rent, utilities, car payments, and even funding their weekend getaways. My sister treated it like her personal allowance, never once looking for steady work beyond the occasional part-time gig that lasted maybe 2 weeks before she'd quit over some trivial complaint. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in March. I just transferred another $2,000 to cover their monthly expenses when my phone rang. My sister was calling from some beach resort, laughing in the background with friends I'd never met, but whose vacation I was apparently funding. She told me they needed more money for activities and room service. When I hesitated, mentioning that I was trying to save for my own place, her tone shifted completely. She laughed, that cruel kind of laugh that cuts right through you, and said I was just being dramatic. Then came the words that still echo in my head. I was just a burden who should be grateful they even talked to me, considering how boring and pathetic my life was. Something snapped inside me. 5 years of gratitude I'd never received, 5 years of being taken for granted, 5 years of watching my own dreams get pushed aside so they could live comfortably. I told her she was never family to me anymore, just a parasite who'd been bleeding me dry. I said some things I can't take back, words that felt justified in that moment, but now leave me questioning everything. I hung up and immediately started making calls. I canceled the credit cards I'd given them access to, stopped the automatic transfers, and called their landlord to explain I wouldn't be covering next month's rent. Within 2 hours, I'd cut off every financial lifeline I'd been providing. The fallout was immediate and brutal. My parents called, confused and panicked about how they'd manage without my support. They tried to mediate, suggesting I was overreacting to what they called a simple misunderstanding. But I'd made my decision. I told them they had 30 days to figure out their finances because I was done. My sister tried calling back that same night, her tone completely different now. She attempted to apologize, claiming she was drunk and didn't mean what she said. But her words felt hollow, like damage control rather than genuine remorse. I could hear the panic creeping into her voice as the reality of her situation set in. Update 1. 2 weeks after cutting them off, the real chaos began. My sister had to cut her vacation short and come home to face the financial reality I'd been shielding her from for years. She moved back in with our parents, who were scrambling to downsize their living situation. My mom called me crying, explaining they'd have to move to a smaller apartment and that my sister was having what she called a mental health crisis. Part of me felt guilty, wondering if I'd been too harsh. But then I remembered all the times I'd sacrificed my own wants and needs, all the dates I'd skipped because I couldn't afford them after sending money home, all the career opportunities I'd passed up because I felt obligated to stay close and keep supporting them. My sister started posting on social media about family betrayal and how money changes people. She painted herself as the victim of my sudden cruelty, conveniently leaving out the years of financial support or the cruel words that triggered my decision. Some mutual friends reached out, asking if everything was okay and suggesting I might want to reconsider my position. The guilt was eating at me, but I stood firm. I'd spent too many years being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who sacrificed so others could be comfortable. For the first time in years, I was putting myself first, and it felt both liberating and terrifying. Update 2. A month later, something unexpected happened. My sister actually found a full-time job. Not the dream position she'd always claimed to be holding out for, but steady work with benefits. My parents managed to find a smaller place they could afford on their own income, and while it meant some lifestyle adjustments, they were managing. I realized that my financial support hadn't been helping them build independence, it had been enabling their dependence. By removing that safety net, I'd forced them to develop skills and resilience they'd never needed before. But the family relationships remained strained. Holiday gatherings became awkward affairs where conversations felt forced and artificial. My sister maintained a polite distance, never quite apologizing for her words, but never acknowledging the years of support either. It was like we were strangers sharing the same last name. I started therapy to work through the guilt and confusion. My therapist helped me understand that setting boundaries wasn't cruel, even when it felt harsh. She pointed out that healthy families don't operate on the assumption that one person should sacrifice their financial security for everyone else's comfort. Update 3. 3 months out, I'm still processing everything. My sister and I barely speak, though she seems to be thriving in her new job. My parents have adjusted to their new financial reality and, surprisingly, seem happier with the independence. They've stopped asking me for money, which has allowed our conversations to focus on other things for the first time in years. I've been able to start saving for my own place again, something that felt impossible when I was supporting 3 other adults. I'm dating someone new, and for the first time, I can afford to take her somewhere nice without calculating how it impacts my family's budget. But the guilt lingers. Late at night, I wonder if I could have handled things differently. Maybe I could have set gradual boundaries instead of cutting everything off at once. Maybe I could have had a serious conversation about expectations before reaching my breaking point. Yet when I really think about it, I realize I tried gentle approaches before. I'd suggested budgets, encouraged job searches, and hinted at needing to reduce my support. Nothing changed until I made the nuclear decision to cut everything off completely. My sister's words that night revealed how she really saw me. Not as a generous brother, but as an obligation-free him. Someone whose feelings and financial stress didn't matter as long as the money kept flowing. That realization hurt more than any amount of money I'd lost over the years. The hardest part is accepting that sometimes doing the right thing for yourself means disappointing people you love. I spent so many years trying to be the perfect son and brother that I forgot to be a person with my own needs and boundaries. I've learned that generosity without boundaries isn't kindness, it's enabling. Real love sometimes means letting people face the consequences of their choices, even when it's painful to watch. My family had to learn to stand on their own feet, and I had to learn that my worth wasn't measured by how much I could give. Looking back, I don't regret cutting them off, but I do regret letting it get to that point. I should have set boundaries years earlier, before resentment built up to the breaking point. I should have recognized that my constant financial support was preventing them from growing and becoming independent. The relationship with my sister may never fully recover, and that's something I have to live with. But I've gained something more valuable: self-respect and the knowledge that I won't be taken advantage of again. I've learned to say no without feeling guilty, to prioritize my own financial security, and to recognize when generosity crosses the line into enabling. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd continued supporting them indefinitely. Would my sister ever have found steady work? Would my parents have learned to manage their finances? Would I have ever been able to build my own life? I'll never know for sure, but I'm finally building the life I want instead of funding everyone else's. That has to count for something, even if it came at the cost of family relationships that may never be the same. The guilt still surfaces sometimes, especially during family events or when I see old photos of happier times. But I've learned that guilt isn't always an indicator of wrongdoing. Sometimes it's just the growing pains of learning to put yourself first after years of putting everyone else ahead of your own needs. I'm still questioning if I did the right thing, but I'm no longer questioning whether I had the right to do it. Everyone deserves to build their own life without being expected to fund everyone else's dreams at the expense of their own.